Helmut Marko is one of the most talked about people on the grid right now, but for all the wrong reasons. Even though the Austrian team and the veteran assured the media that there is nothing going on between both sides, it seems like the future of Helmut is anything but certain with Red Bull. The 80-year-old has opened up about their future, and the words that came out of his mouth came as a surprise to many. All of this prompted us to ask a very solid question. Is there a power shift going on in Red Bull right now? And if so, who will lead the reins amid the rebranding of Alpha Tauri? It goes without saying that Helmut Marko has been one of the most hated individuals on the grid due to his actions, and whether or not you're a Red Bull fan or not, there are certain things that you just can't justify, such as him branding the poor performance from Perez on his nationality, as well as the constant negative comments towards the veteran driver as well. Lewis Hamilton hasn't shied away from putting some bad shade on Marko as well, saying that he expects nothing less from a human being like he is, which all prompted conversations about a potential replacement and an end for the 80-year-old with his future with Red Bull. Amid all of the drama going on between him and Perez, the team has stepped up and made the right decision, which is to make Marko apologise for his actions, although they did state loudly and clearly that they can't penalise him due to the fact that he's not employed by the team, as he serves as the special advisor for them. But be that as it may, there have been lots of talks about how the new owners that have taken over the team ever since Dietrich Mateschitz passed away wanted to give all the power to Christian Horner and take it away from Helmut Marko, who has served a lot of good purposes, as well as scouting talent like Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo and Sebastian Vettel, and promoting them to the senior team of Red Bull. In order for you to understand why Helmut Marko's position in Red Bull has suddenly become uncertain, you need to understand a couple of unfortunate events that happened in the Austrian team first. For starters, the old friend of Helmut and the leader of the team, Dietrich Mateschitz, passed away last year, which meant that the team would have to be led by another younger group of people who see more potential in staff like Horner rather than Marko. On top of that, Mateschitz did not really leave Marko that much from Red Bull, such as stakes or being part of the team, so that he could be able to negotiate his way in these talks. His current role is very simple. He's the head of the Red Bull driver development program, and he's also the special advisor for the team. So the only strong relationship he had with any of the Red members, apart from the drivers he brought to F1, was Dietrich Mateschitz. Dietrich was the shoulder that Marko could have relied on for the majority of his presence in Red Bull, and now that he's gone, there doesn't seem to be a place that the veteran could fit in the new structure. Another major factor that points towards this scenario becoming true is the rebranding of AlphaTauri to Racing Bulls, as the CEO of the team, Peter Bayer, went on to say that they're going to be working a lot closer with Red Bull from 2024 onwards. What this means, whether he likes it or not, is that Horner will have a lot more power on that team as well, something that started to become obvious ever since Ricciardo replaced De Vries, as the Dutchman was more or less the choice of Marko in the first place. Regardless, the future of Marko in Red Bull is anything but certain, and this is something that he made sure everybody understood in his latest statement, that his presence in Formula One might be done and dusted, and we might be seeing the last of the 80-year-old Austrian. But before we go into that, let's go a bit deeper into the internal drama that happened earlier this season between Marko and Horner, one in which the Austrian said that he's the one choosing whether or not he's going to leave the team or not. I'm mentioning this in the video because it's very important to see how contradictory Marko has been of himself in the past couple of months, going from a state of high confidence to one in which he's not very certain that the new boss is going to like his presence in the team at all. Elaborating on this, Marko went on to say, "There is no summit this week. I have a contract until the end of next year. When and how I stop when it's over, I decide, and not, for example, Mr. Horner. Due to the new constellation after the death of Dietrich, everything is different. Certain people are now trying to redefine their powers." This could very well mean that Marko now understands that Horner is in a position where he could easily control the entire power situation in Red Bull. And even though the rumours were squashed a couple of months ago with the statements being made by both Horner and Marko, the fire has been reignited yet again after the veteran Austrian said that he does not feel like everything is certain with his Red Bull tenure. Obviously, the new owners that are led by Oliver Mintzlaff, as well as the new investors from Thailand, recognise the potential that Red Bull has to dominate in the sport for quite some time yet, and the last thing that they need is a liability in Helmut Marko. I'm not saying that he's not done anything good for the team. Quite the contrary. I said a lot of positive stuff that he's contributed to Red Bull, but the latest statements towards Perez, as well as the word war he's involved in with Hamilton, are all bringing negative shade to Red Bull's reputation, which is not something they should be aiming for from the 2024 season onwards. Unfortunately for Marko, this is something that he's realised on his own, and the time might have finally come for him to say, enough is enough. So when being asked about this matter to a further extent, Marko went on to say, there are different trends and variants. The decisions are still open, including what I will do next. My current contract runs until the end of 2024. That is a complex issue. Of course, I also have an obligation to Red Bull and Max. Nevertheless, the overall package has to fit. Nothing has been decided yet. Furthermore, Marko went on to emphasise the importance of the passing of Dietrich and how that affected the entire power shift that is currently happening in Red Bull. And adding on this matter, in a further note, he said, it's now an extended group of people, including Mark Mateschitz, the Thais, and Oliver Mintzlaff. The way we used to be able to decide things with Dietrich Mateschitz was unique. After this winning season, which put everything in the shade, I was incredibly sorry that he was no longer able to experience it. There is one thing that is definitely certain as we are moving forward in the 2026 era, and that is that the dominance of Red Bull is being more and more pressurized by other teams. The time for other teams to catch up is here, and while the Austrian team has enjoyed a season that not many teams have enjoyed in the history of the sport, every good thing must come to an end. Yeah, it's very unlikely it's going to happen next year in 2024 due to the fact that there are not that many regulation changes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the rest of the grid, like McLaren, Ferrari, Aston Martin and Mercedes, did not figure out their aerodynamic flaws and could very well challenge Red Bull more frequently than they did in 2023. This is very important for the entire future of the team, mostly because they do not have that much wiggle room when it comes to holding the competition below their feet, and the statements that have been made by Helmut Marko are ones that have the potential to raise some eyebrows, even among the most hardcore fans of the sport. Bashing your own driver and putting the bad performance on his nationality is the last thing you want to do in a sport that pushes towards diversity and a discrimination-free zone. So maybe the old heads are definitely not really needed in F1 after all. With this in mind, do you think that Marko will remain in Red Bull from 2024 onwards? Let us know what you think in the comments below.